up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon. President Park Geun-hye stresses the importance of innovation for achieving sustainable regional growth at a meeting with business leaders attending the APEC summit in Bali. Consumer groups call on the head of the country's financial watchdog to step down for failing to protect bondholders from the debacle of the debt-ridden conglomerate Tong Yang Group. Plus, deadly clashes between Egyptian security forces and supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi kill at least 50 people and injure nearly 250. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. President Park Geun-hye is in Bali, Indonesia, the first leg of her 8-day trip to Southeast Asia. Ahead of the opening of the APEC summit later today, President Park will meet with the Asia-Pacific region's business leaders, or she met them, rather, on Sunday.
Our presidential correspondent, Oh Jin-ju, who is traveling with the president, filed this report.
President Park emphasized that innovation is the only source of sustainable growth in the world economy. Addressing over 1,000 business leaders from the region upon her arrival in Bali on Sunday, President Park said a, quote, innovation crisis was the main reason behind the current global economic slowdown and high unemployment.
혁신만이 새로운 성장 동력을 끊임없이 창출하며 일자리를 만들어 나갈 수 있습니다.
She then laid out her vision for a so-called creative economy, saying there needed to be a, quote, innovative paradigm and a new strategy for economic growth. How is a creative economy different from what we have now?
그렇기 때문에 창조 경제에는 성장의 한계가 없고 지속 가능한 성장을 달성할 수 있습니다.
President Park said a creative economy is based on an individual's creativity, which is inexhaustible and doesn't have any negative side effects, such as, for example, pollution. She added a creative economy could also be a way to overcome unbalanced growth in the global economy, as creativity is within each nation and individual, whether it be a developing or a developed country.
저는 개도국의 창조 경제 수요를 기반으로 혁신과 개발 모델을 전수하고 영내 동반 성장을 함께 실현해 나가기를 기대합니다.
President Park called on nations to strip away regulations that hinder new industries and rework business regulations from a system that has many restraints to an economy that allows individuals and businesses to work outside the box.
Later this Monday, President Park will take part in the first session of the APEC summit on strengthening the multilateral trading system. And on the sidelines of the official gathering today, she's also scheduled to hold bilateral talks with leaders of 4 of the participating countries: China, Canada, Mexico, and Peru. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News, Bali.
At the National Assembly, the ruling Saenuri Party laid out its goals for the current session and urged the parliament to move forward with bills aimed at creating jobs and reviving the sluggish real estate market. Party leader Hwang Woo-yeol also asked that the minority parties not abuse the law in order to stall the processing of urgent bills. The National Assembly Advancement Law was designed to keep the majority party from ramming bills through the legislature without the participation of the minority. Hwang offered an apology for the government's scaled-down pension plan for senior citizens, seen as a retreat from one of President Park's key campaign pledges. The main opposition Democratic Party will have a chance to lay out its goals in a speech scheduled for tomorrow. Korea's ruling and opposition parties continue to lock horns over former President Roh Moo-hyun's remarks on a contested maritime border and the whereabouts of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript. The prosecution is set to summon officials from the former Roh administration. Our Park Ji-won reports.
The ruling Saenuri party says the National Intelligence Service needs to release its tape recording of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit between then President Roh Moo-hyun and late North Korean leader Kim Jong-il to reveal the truth about the ongoing controversy surrounding the summit meeting and its missing transcript. Prosecutors investigating the whereabouts of the transcript announced last week that it was never been transferred to the National Archives as it should have been. Instead, prosecutors found two versions of the transcript in an electronic government document management system used by President Roh. One of the versions was retrieved by prosecutors among deleted files.
We need to know why the Roh administration discarded a historic transcript in an illegal manner, in violation of the nation's record management law that was made by the Roh administration itself.
The opposition Democratic Party, which is a liberal party that includes many of former President Roh's aides, is watching the situation closely but refraining from making too many comments on the matter. It says the controversy over the transcript is unrelated to the livelihoods of citizens. The DP says it wants to focus on other political issues, such as tax reforms or senior pensions.
With sincere preparations, the party will show the people what it is like to be true opposition lawmakers that fight at the National Assembly.
The controversy surrounding the summit began last October during a parliamentary inspection when the ruling Saenuri party lawmakers said former President Roh made remarks about giving up the nation's de facto maritime border in the West Sea during the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit. The political turmoil had compounded ever since, as the transcript of the summit was nowhere to be found. Prosecutors plan to summon around 30 people of the former Roh administration for questioning and announce their official results by the end of the month. The results are expected to have big knockout effects on the by-election schedule at the end of the month. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The South Korean government plans to use flexibility in handling foreign investment into the Inter-Korean Kaesang industrial complex in line with the South economic sanctions on North Korea. Ahead of a government audit, the Unification Ministry in Seoul said the sanctions following the sinking of the Cheonan warship in 2010 are not directly linked to the so-called developmental normalization of the complex, which includes inviting foreign investment. Unification Minister Yoo Gil-jae told lawmakers last week that investment by foreign firms does not conflict with the sanctions that ban new capital going into the joint business park. The two Koreas had agreed to invite foreign investors to the factory zone at the end of this month, but it's uncertain whether that will happen as inter-Korean relations have since become frosty again.
The rapid rise in Korea's national debt is increasingly pressurizing the government to either increase taxes or make serious spending cuts. The Finance Ministry says the government's debt is projected to grow to $480 billion next year from $413 billion last year. The projected 2014 debt represents an 8.5-fold increase from $55 billion tallied in 1997. Given President Park Geun-hye's policy to expand welfare spending, fiscal experts say the government will probably have to hike taxes in the near future. One of the country's main consumer advocacy agencies is planning to launch a campaign calling on the head of the country's financial watchdog to step down. The move comes amid mounting criticism of the Financial Supervisory Service for failing to respond to investors that have suffered losses from the debt-ridden Tong Yang Group. Yulian reports.
The Financial Consumer Agency has been growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of action from the country's financial watchdog in dealing with the massive losses incurred by the tens of thousands of people who invested in the cash-strapped Tong Yang Group. The Financial Supervisory Service has already been under fire for failing to properly monitor the debt-ridden Tong Yang Group. The country's 30th largest conglomerate had sold a massive amount of high-risk corporate bills and bonds, mostly to individual investors, to repay its debt. The Financial Consumer Agency, or FCA, says it has repeatedly asked to meet with the head of the FSS to create a relief plan for the nearly 20,000 investors who have filed for losses with the FCA. After failing to get any response, the consumer agency vowed on Monday to launch a campaign calling on the head of the financial watchdog, Choi, to step down. The Financial Supervisory Service maintains that it is doing all it can to deal with the Tong Yang crisis. Since last Friday, the watchdog has been analyzing more than 8,000 complaints filed by investors holding Tong Yang debt. Around 40,000 investors have fallen victim to the Tong Yang crisis, and with no relief plan announced, their concerns are growing.
Most of these people have invested their marriage funds, retirement savings, and severance pay. It's hard to even imagine the pain that these people are going through. One widowed investor has even lost all of her former husband's insurance money.
Tong Yang Group owes retail investors 2 trillion won, or roughly $1.8 billion, and about $840,000 to financial firms as of the end of last month. Yurian, Arirang News.
Many working mums in Korea are often left with no other choice but to put their careers on hold when they start a family. Some local companies, however, are offering new employment opportunities to mothers who want to get back to work. Paul Lee reports.
It's been nearly 7 years since Miss No used an espresso machine. She left her previous job to take care of her children, but this refresher course is quickly catching her up to speed. No is one of the many mothers invited by Starbucks Korea to be retrained so they can re-enter the workforce.
After having my second child, I had to quit due to daycare issues. But during that time, I felt a bit upset and sometimes regretted leaving the career I had built up. But now that the company first contacted me,
Starbucks Korea launched a support program to retain skilled employees, many of whom were quitting due to the pressures of childcare.
We wanted to hire back aspiring partners who already had excellent know-how and experience. By starting to create jobs, this can become a win-win situation for both individuals and companies.
The iconic coffee company is hoping to attract about 100 former employees a year through the program, which includes much more flexible working hours. It's a growing trend among large firms here in Korea that have recognized this untapped talent pool. It's been 12 years since Miss Oh, another eager participant in the so-called returnership program, quit her job.
Since there was such a long break in my career, the desire for me to go back to work increased, and I had more passion to do so as well. Also, compared to when I was younger, there certainly seems to be more flexibility.
Demand for such programs shows that mothers are making a comeback in Korea's job market, while hinting at further signs of a more diversified future workforce. Paul Yi, Arirang News. For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broome every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
At least 50 people have been killed and nearly 250 wounded in a day of deadly protests in Egypt. State media reported that clashes began as supporters of deposed President Mohamed Morsi took to the streets in major cities in Egypt as the military-backed government marked the 40th anniversary of the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. Most of the casualties were reported in Cairo when the army opened fire on Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood demonstrators. Security sources say protesters were attempting to make their way towards Tahrir Square, a popular uprising location where they toppled autocrat Hosni Mubarak back in 2011. Libya is demanding the U.S. government explain its special forces raid on its territory, one of two by U.S. commandos in Africa on Saturday. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
U.S. forces carried out two separate raids in Libya and Somalia on Saturday, nabbing a top al-Qaeda figure but failing to capture the target involved in last month's attack on an upscale shopping mall in Kenya. In Tripoli, U.S. commandos captured Nazi al-Raqi, also known as Abu Anas al-Libi, who was wanted for a suspected role in the bombings of the U.S. embassy in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998 that killed more than 220 people. A U.S. official says the suspect was taken to a U.S. Navy warship in the region and is undergoing questioning. The Libyan government has asked Washington to provide clarification on the abduction of Libby and demanded to know why it was not informed on the raid in advance. The U.S. said it had notified the Libyan government, but Libya denies this. In other raid in Somalia, U.S. Navy SEALs stormed a home in the south of the country believed to be the base of al-Shabaab, but they failed to secure their target. U.S. officials say the raid was in response to the attack on the Westgate shopping mall last month. More than 60 people, including a Korean citizen, were killed during the four-day siege. The al-Qaeda-linked militant group al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry confirmed the capture of the senior al-Qaeda figure, saying the raids show the U.S. will not stop its effort to hold those accountable who conduct acts of terror. Speaking in Indonesia ahead of Asia-Pacific Summit, Kerry said terrorists can run, but they can't hide. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A team of international experts has started to destroy Syria's chemical weapons arsenal and related equipment. No further details have been released, but Syria's stockpile is estimated to include more than 1,000 tons of sarin, as well as other deadly agents stored in dozens of different locations. The dismantling work comes after the US and Russia brokered a deal to see Damascus hand over its chemical arms stockpile by the middle of next year. Speaking with Germany's Der Spiegel magazine, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad said he hoped Berlin would mediate the international talks in Geneva next month that will seek a diplomatic solution to the 30-month-long civil war in Syria. The Syrian leader, however, said he will not negotiate with the rebels unless they give up their weapons. As the US government shutdown looks set to extend into a second week now, the effects in the US are becoming more pronounced, with private firms also feeling the crunch. Leaders at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting have also expressed their concerns about the effect the shutdown will have on the global economy. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The ripple effects of the U.S. government shutdown are starting to hit the country's multi-billion-dollar defense industry. Lockheed Martin says it has put 3,000 workers on unpaid leave and warned that additional workers may also be sent home if the shutdown continues. This follows helicopter manufacturer United Technologies' decision to lay off some 2,000 employees following the shutdown.
They should give up their paychecks. You know, they should reserve the right to get a paycheck, to know what it feels like to not have the money to provide for your family, to be able to put food on the table, to be able to put gas in your car.
At the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting in Bali on Sunday, U.S. Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker warned that more businesses in the U.S. will suffer from the federal shutdown. In turn, Asian leaders at the meeting voiced their fears about the impact the U.S. shutdown will have on the global economy and called for Washington to find a better way to deal with its fiscal problems. The U.S. government is currently in deadlock over its budget issues. Republican House Speaker John Boehner says he will refuse to raise the U.S. debt ceiling without a, quote, serious conversation with the Obama administration. Republicans want President Obama's signature health care law delayed in return for approving the federal budget. President Obama is refusing to negotiate with the Republicans unless they pass a temporary bill to reopen the federal government. Obama also wants to raise the country's borrowing limit of $16.7 trillion in order to avoid debt default, which may happen next week if the two sides fail to reach a compromise. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
A document proving Japan had forcefully brought women into wartime sexual slavery has been made public. Japan's Kyodo News says this old court document shows the Japanese military during World War II coerced 35 Dutch women into sexual slavery in Indonesia. The more than 500-page document was made available from last month to this past Sunday by the National Archives of Japan upon a request by a Japanese civic organization. What the document contains goes against the current Shinzo Abe administration's stance on the sex slave issue. The Abe cabinet insists there is no official evidence to prove the victims were forced to provide sexual services. One of the biggest storms of the year, Typhoon Fito, has made landfall in eastern China. Authorities in China say Fito is packing winds of up to 150 kilometers an hour and heavy downpours. Some homes are reported to have collapsed, but officials don't expect too many casualties as hundreds of thousands of residents in Fujian and Zhejiang provinces managed to evacuate before the storm hit the coast. Plane, train, and bus services have been canceled until the worst is over. The storm is moving in a northwesterly direction and it's expected to weaken quickly.
Olympic gold medalist Yang Hak-son won his second straight gold medal in the vault Sunday, the final day of the 2013 World Gymnastics Championships in Antwerp, Belgium. After finishing first in the preliminary round, the 21-year-old gymnast pulled off his signature Yang 1 maneuver on his first attempt, followed by a Lopez on his second attempt for a score of 15.533 overall. Yang, known as the god of the vault here in Korea, decided against showcasing his highly anticipated new move, the Yang 2. Red Bull's Sebastian Vettel took another huge step forward to his fourth straight Formula One World Championship Sunday, winning an eventful Korean Grand Prix. The German's fourth successive win, his third in 4 years in Korea, means he extends his lead in the Drivers' Championship to 77 points over second-placed Fernando Alonso. Lotus's Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean finished second and third respectively, but never looked close to catching Vettel. The race will be remembered for the right front tyre of Sergio Perez's McLaren exploding and a collision that sent Vettel's teammate Mark Webber spinning out of the race and setting his car on fire. The team's next stop is Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend.
Typhoon Danas is on its way to Korea, and so let's get a check on the weather with our Lee Ji-hyun standing by at the Weather Center. Hello to you, Ji-hyun.
Good afternoon, guys. Well, as Yoo-sun just said, Typhoon Danas is heading to Korea, and it's been 15 years since we've been affected by typhoon in October.
Yes, I heard you at the 6 a.m. newscast, and you said the southern coast is likely to be affected the most. Luckily, the Formula One didn't have any rain yesterday, but the Busan International Film Festival continues until Saturday. So is this going to be affected by the typhoon?
Well, Mark, for now, we assume so. Danas is heading to the southern and east coast regions as of now. And by tomorrow morning, gust winds and up to 150 millimeters of rainfall will hit the southern provinces. Now, Jeju and the southern parts of Gyeongsang province will be affected by it the most, so please take precautions against accidents and damage. Well, today, the whole nation is kicking off a new week under mostly cloudy skies with afternoon highs similar to yesterday. And as we can see, the clouds are sticking around the nation and it's likely to linger all day long and will start to drop showers in Jeju Island later in the evening. So tomorrow morning, the entire nation will wake up to rainfall, so make sure you have your umbrella handy, and the rainfall should let up heading towards the evening for the central regions, but the rest of the country will see lingering showers till Wednesday morning. Again, be sure to check the forecast frequently if you're in the path of Typhoon Danas. With that, it's time to take a look at readings for today. So we'll get up to 23 degrees Celsius, which is 73 degrees in Fahrenheit, but there's a chance of pop-up showers in the late afternoon. And the high in Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 25 and 27 respectively, while Busan will get up to 26 under lots of clouds. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will also rise to 26 and Dokdo will make into the low 20s. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today. Enjoy your lunch break, and back to Yusun and Mark in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jian, for the weather report there. And that's pretty much all from us now. But I do like to remind everyone that you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, which is arirang.co.kr/news.
We hope everyone's off to a good start of the week, and join us again tomorrow. See you then.